on to public comment. Just a reminder, this is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on agenda items, contribute info that may be of interest to the school committee, or ask clarifying questions. Please wait to be recognized and identify yourself before speaking. This is not the time to register complaints or promote a personal agenda. Please remember that you may not identify any person by name or job functions. We'd like to welcome Greg Newell.
Greg Newell, Hermon, school committee members. I'd like to play you an audio recording. It's from the school committee meeting on January 8th, 2024.
Full reading of the budget will be in March. First reading of the budget will be in March. So somewhere between now and 1 March, we will work as a finance subcommittee to put together the budget workshop so that we can have all data. Because as of right now, we don't have all the data we need.
So you're still not doing a budget workshop like you used to, like they used to?
No, that's not true. Yeah, what I said is we have not scheduled a workshop yet because we have not put all our information together yet. We should have all that information for the January 30th meeting, and then the finance subcommittee can work to put together the workshop timeline.
It's now January 27th, and the public never got a single workshop on the budget. I guess Ms. Skeezer was right. You all were not going to have a workshop on it. I guess you all think that maybe the public has no need to ask questions about a $19.7 million budget. I now know why you did not want to show actual costs on the budget sheets, because people would have seen the following. According to this school department's handouts, at the end of the 22-23 school budget year, the school department spent $16,682,859.56, not $17,516,987, as you stated. The difference between the two budgets is $3,045,403.40. That's an 18.3% increase. If you compare the student enrollment numbers from 22 to 23 time frame to what is projected to what is projected for the budget for the 2025 time frame, it's actually a student population decrease of 1.3%. I'm all for supporting teachers, students, and providing what they need. But someone has to explain this to me. It doesn't make sense. I'm also wondering when the first reading of the budget will happen. The last committee meeting, in the agenda, it said a budget presentation. Didn't say anything about a first reading, and I'm wondering when that's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Regina Leonard.
Hi, Regina Leonard, Hermon. Kind of hopping off of what Greg said, I sent an email to the entire board December 6th where I requested a workshop for the budget season to be put on the agenda, and that never happened. And I really don't understand the hesitancy that you have on this committee of not having workshops and involving the public. The majority of my taxes go to this school, and having some input and some feedback from your people would start to heal a lot of things if there was some more communication. Another thing that I noticed today trying to find budget items and such on the website, it's incredibly difficult to find them, and I never did find the line item budget on the website. I mean, there's stuff on our website from before COVID. Instagram, you can start an Instagram page, and Facebook, like lots of things to be used and put out so that we can have this information. I think it's great that you're ahead of schedule on the budget. I think that's wonderful. And that the town and you are working together. That's great. But you need to involve the people and let the people be heard. And I'm going to bring it up again because I want to see and have an answer on the budget of what your budget is for your lawyer fees. Because at this rate, right now, you're going to be over $100,000 this year. And I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. That money could be used and put elsewhere, and we all know it. And I want to see more things for kids and for our teachers instead of this insane spending that doesn't need to happen. Again, I never got a reply from that email, so, communication is lacking. I think that was all I had for questions. Let me just, no, there are a couple more questions. The lawyer fees was one. Are you looking down the line in the next year, in the event of this lawsuit that's gonna happen? What happens if, you're forced to settle for more than the insurance covers? Where's that money coming from? The IT issue and how much is that gonna cost? I haven't heard anything talked about that. We've heard upwards to $1 million for computers and all the other networking stuff, and I haven't seen that put anywhere. The SEC investigation, I know we don't know yet, but are we projecting and looking at that and how much money that could be and where is that gonna come from? Because in the end, we know where it comes from, the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're also going to give the public an opportunity to speak after Micah's presentation, and I'm not sure how many workshops we've had, but we've
Point of
opened
order,
those all up
point
to the
of
public
order.
as well.
You know that I wrote down that I wanted to speak.
So I'm going to turn it over to
I
Micah
asked
for
to speak
presentation.
during public comment. I have a legal right to speak during public comment.
You are part of the committee, and we
You
can
no,
speak.
no, you do this to me every single time. You say I can speak during the committee, then you don't let me speak here. You don't let me speak
Micah
during
is
public
going to
comment.
present on the budget.
I
and
am
then
written
that is
down, it is
during-
my First Amendment right to walk down and speak.
You are part of the committee.
You said that last time, and then when I tried to speak, you wouldn't let me talk.
I would invite you to present on the budget.
I
So,
am not
as
going
you
to be
can see
silent
from-
constantly.
as you can see from the packet, and the handouts are on the back table as well.
I said point of order.
So, as you can see from the packet, that's on the back table as well, you have the proposed budget. Not a lot has changed in regards to the first several slides that are on there, but I'll just walk you through those. This budget, and one of the primary goals of the budget was to, as I said at the last meeting, was to keep several of the federal positions that we had in place. The notable positions are the middle school teacher, the nurse at the middle school, and obviously accommodate for all the collective bargaining units. Those were the primary concerns with this budget. This budget does that. It also captures the needed instructional and supply requests from the staff, and it does continue to reduce the undesignated fund. So even after the first reading of the budget, we were still able to accomplish that and bring, obviously I had a projected number, probably you've all seen it at this point, but I'm thankful and pleased to say that that number has come way down from our first reading. And I just want to especially thank Jamie for her diligence and her work in that. Building principals have been just absolutely supportive. I appreciate your effort, your work with us, in really trying to recalibrate the budget so that our target is going to be, when we move into the next several years, what we're going to try to accomplish is spending or moving into a situation where we are not leaving 5-6% unspent, but we're moving into a range of 2.5% to 3% unspent. But that's a much more reasonable number when you start looking at our budget. The third slide, the third slide in the packet, it just highlights the timetable, and here I would just say, thank you to the Finance Committee, all the individuals from the public that showed up and shared, as well as the town councilors that participated, as well as Mr. Berry. I really appreciate their effort in this. We are way ahead of schedule, which is great. We had great participation again from those individuals from the town, and also from the school, the directors, the principals, etc. And so I just, again, really appreciate the effort and the time that they put into that to, frankly, give me feedback, give the committee feedback. It has been a really helpful process, but doing that the last 2 years, I think it helps, streamline and build support for the budget. The enrollment, well, we are projecting a slight increase for next year. We're projecting about 1,375 students. So that's obviously a good thing, both in budget and for the health of our school. We do anticipate seeing most of that increase take place here at Hermon High School. We plan on about 20 more students.
Excuse me, point of order. Chair, when are we allowed to ask questions as he's going? Do we have questions?
Let's ask him to allow him to present. I'm gonna open it up up to the public, I'll remind you, as a committee member, you're able to speak more than 3 minutes, and you will have plenty of time at that time. So let's allow Micah to present. I'm gonna open it up to public comment, and then the committee will have an opportunity. Thank you.
So we are anticipating about 1,375 students, and as you know, that number is important because specifically when that happens at the high school, we have an increase. A lot of times that impacts our tuition or our tuition rate or both. In addition, it's also the number that 8279 subsidies are based on. And so the higher you are, they take a 2-year average. And so again, we would like to see our enrollment continue to increase, and we do anticipate a slight bump from this year. The 8279 at this time still has not changed, but we are anticipating that we will not rule that out. We do think that that could potentially happen. We're waiting for some bus information and how we structured the bus payment last year. So we think that there could be an adjustment, and if it's an adjustment that increases our budget, we'll bring it back. If it decreases our budget, we'll just continue on. So 8279, that just gives you an idea of our ratios. Slide 6, the notable changes in this year's budgets, that although the enrollment was down from last year across the board, we were still able to pick up a significant amount more in state subsidy, both at the pre-K 8 level and the 9-12 level. So the town contribution rose $143,000, the state contribution rose $327,000 for a total of $470,000 increase. That has not changed yet. We are not anticipating any changes again there. So that's obviously a notable increase, and that's something that has happened over the last 2 years. We have seen increases in both the town contribution and the state contribution as a result of the 8279. So where we currently stand, this highlights the budget history, slide 7, and it also highlights where this budget is. That number is $19,728,262. That represents a $677,000 increase over last year, which is just a hair over 3.5. I think it's 3.55%. So the budget is up 3.5%, and it's again a total of $19,728,262. That is down from my initial proposal to you on, I believe it was March 4th or 5th, whatever that school committee meeting was. We were just a little bit over 20 million. It was 20,078,000 and change. That we were trying to get to 19,819,000, somewhere in that range. And we have, again, just been able to whittle away at that, really continue to calibrate actuals versus what is budgeted, and try to develop trends, move things to the right lines. And again, Jamie, thank you for all the work in that. The major expenditure improvements, one of the ideas that came out of the finance committee was to look at where we are spending like one-time costs, or where we seem to just spend money one time. And the one thing that we noticed was that we don't necessarily, that doesn't always come out of facilities. I know a lot of times it feels like facilities are, right, we label them as SIPS projects. Oftentimes we pay for those out of reserve accounts. But one of the things that we noticed was we have other areas, especially this year, where we have several significant one-time costs. And so that bar graph highlights where we have some of those major expenditure improvements this year. Those include the bus purchase, $80,000. We have about $25,000 in one-time purchases for our athletic department. We have well over $200,000 in facilities, so some of the significant things there. We have a new cafeteria floor that we are planning on putting in. That's at the, both not only in the cafeteria itself, but in the lobbyway. And there's an asbestos abatement that has to happen in conjunction with that. We take up the old floor, a water storage tank, replacing many of the doors at the middle school. So there's a large door project that we're going to be doing down at the middle school, putting better and stronger doors in both internally And then another significant cost this year is an engineering design here at Hermon High School. There's 2 science rooms that we'd like to turn into state-of-the-art science labs. Unfortunately, due to the way those are currently constructed, the hallways into those spaces, we are going to need an engineering design. And so we are receiving bids for that. And so that's a pretty significant cost prior to being able to do the actual construction. And then technology, we have several projects planned this year. We have some cabling projects at all 3 buildings, antivirus software that we plan on putting on some of the devices that don't currently have it. We have several cameras that we'd like to put in, some new paging equipment at our 2 at our elementary and our middle school, battery backups, and then ultimately doing a security audit in the fall to compare that to the audit that we had done back in this last fall in September. So the major component that we get asked a lot about, and when we talk it over in Finance Committee, the primary concern is that we understand we do not spend to zero. We have funds that are left over at the end of every single year. And so this budget, and when you look at our undesignated fund, this budget assumes that all of those funds, which is $1 million in this year's, in the current budget, the year we're in FY24, we plan on using $1 million as revenue from our undesignated fund. And I think that it is important that we spend the entire amount of that. Now, that doesn't have to be on all items, right? It doesn't have to be on supplies and things like that, but we do believe that we will probably come in unexpended to a full $1 million. And so the Finance Committee recommended looking at priority use of those undesignated funds, that $1 million. So if we don't use the full $1 million, what and should we spend that money on? So what I recommended after getting that instruction was I recommend that anything shy of $1 million should go to 2 significant projects. This is on slide 9. Project A, there's a significant fencing project. You've probably seen some of the fencing that's been knocked down a little bit here at the high school, as well as around some of the newer facilities that are going up. We anticipate that to be just under $40,000. And so I recommend that that be the first project that we spend anything short of $1 million on. If we have, whatever we're not spent out of that undesignated fund. I then think that we should complete a awning project at the elementary school. I talked about this in the Finance Committee. I believe I mentioned it at the budget meeting. We have several cement curbs and awnings out. Some of the wings at the elementary school, they are in very bad shape. They're the pavement, or the concrete is either cracking. The awnings can't support snow, rain gets through them, etc. It's like a safety hazard. Kids, go in and out for recess, things like that. So that would be the second project that I would recommend we allocate that money to. So that's about $90,000. I then think we should designate whatever's left, and this is how I would recommend designating the money. I think we should designate priority 1. We should designate $250,000 to complete the renovation of the science labs. We believe that this will be a very expensive project. There is several $100,000 in the designated fund already in the school repair reserve accounts. However, having $250,000 there to pull next year would dramatically reduce the amount that would have to be raised locally next year on top of the expenditure budget, the normal operation budget. I think it would be very wise to have that money put away, and that way that project can get started as soon as school is over. And so I think we should designate $250,000 into a specific science laboratory or science improvement or high school science labs project. I then believe we should, if there's any money left over, so right now we're talking $350,000, if there's any money left over, I think that we should fully fund the bus reserve account. So the cost of buying one bus is about $155,000. We have about $80,000 in the bus reserve right now. So I'm recommending $73,000 to bus reserves to round out that account, and then putting, if, again, and this is just if there's money left over, well, what you're doing is you're designating it. You're putting it with an earmark on it so that it doesn't just go back into the designated fund, it has a targeted purpose. I'm recommending that we use $50,000, again, if we put it into the enrollment stabilization. We have always intended to rename that to like out-of-district placement, but that would bring that fund up to about $150,000. That would fund you roughly 3 to 4 students out of district for an entire year. You're looking at 40 to 50,000, depending on their age bracket, right? If they're pre-K to 4, 5 to 8, or 9 to 12. So the numbers might fluctuate depending on who the student is and what program they're in, but that would give you enough money to safely fund, again, 3 students in out-of-district placement, maybe more if they were younger students. So that's how I recommend we potentially either spend or designate about $450,000 to $500,000 if it happens to be left over at the end of this budget year, in that descending order. What I did on the next slide, I just showed the reserve accounts. And so I did highlight specifically here, I didn't add any to the bus purchase, and I did not add anything to the enrollment stabilization, but you can see where those numbers are. The bus purchase is at $87,000. The enrollment stabilization is at $100,000. That's why I recommended the numbers that I did, if available. But you can see that I did add in the HHS Science Lab project at $250,000. So, moving into the undesignated fund, you can see from your revenue sheet, this is also one of the handouts in the back. If you go to page 4, which is the last page, it's almost the last line down, not quite. It's called the balance forward revenue. That is the money that we are using out of our undesignated fund to fund this year's budget. So we plan on using $1,399,848 out of the undesignated fund to fund this year's budget. One of the recommendations, again, this was another great recommendation that came out of Finance Committee, was to highlight the things in the budget that were major expenditure improvements, such as some of the facilities, the IT, that we know and anticipate will be a singular cost, versus the actual expenditure budget. So how much is being used to fund one-time projects and how much is being used to fund normal operations. Now, we can't show it like this on this revenues report. It doesn't work that way. However, I am able to show it in my own spreadsheet. And so what I did in this particular spreadsheet is slide 11. I'm able to show what the school department fund balance was on June 30th. Now, we don't get this report till October, but this backdates to June 30th of 2023. And you can see what our fund balance was, $3,170,000. Then you have to less out the fund balance that we are planning on using this year. And that's that $1 million I was just referencing. So we plan on using obviously a significant portion of that for this year's budget. And if we do not use all of it, you already saw how I would propose either designating it or spending it and then designating it. Then listed several of the capital improvement projects for the FY25 budget year, including the PADS projects, which was the flooring, the water tank, the door projects, the engineering design here, IT updates, athletics, for a total of roughly $410,000. I've kind of gone back and forth. Sometimes I think it's like $415,000. And some of the items we're just not 100% sure, like if we're gonna have to, like we had a mower deck on there, we're we're not sure if that counts as a one-time cost. So this number has fluctuated. You saw this from my emails earlier this week. It's fluctuated between $396 and $410 to $416,000. But we feel right now that roughly $410,000. Yeah, about $410,000 is for projects and one-time costs. And what that does is that kind of breaks down that undesignated fund of $1.3 million that's listed as revenue. It kind of shows you that the operational budget is just a little bit over $9 million, actually just a little under $1 million, excuse me, at $989,000. And that gives you the total of $1,399,848. Now, if that was all used next year for the budget, the capital improvements, etc., that would fully draw, that would draw down your undesignated balance to start the FY26 year to $770,000. So when you look at where we are right now with, as of the audit of $3,170,000 down to $770,000, obviously we have a plan to continue to reduce that very large amount to what we would consider to be an operational and safe level. And we're using it to offset taxes. And one of the reasons why that number is $989,000 is highlighted on the next slide, the last slide, the history of local contribution. One of the things that the Finance Committee also recommended was they recommended that in 23-24, we asked the taxpayers, the town, and then the taxpayers, we asked for $1,216,296. That's the additional local that we asked for above and beyond what the state said the town had to contribute. This year, we were planning on asking for that same amount, $1,216,296, which would have yielded an increase. So if you follow 24-25 in that last slide, if you follow that down, if you were to take the $1,133,243, if you were to make that $1,216,296, you'd see a bump of roughly $83,000. However, it was recommended, and I'm bringing that forward tonight as my recommendation, is that we go in with a $0 increase to the town this year. We had many good conversations about this at Finance Committee, and we just feel like, given, again, the year that it's been, with inflation, what it's been, this year, we would be able to use all our undesignated fund, or a large majority of our undesignated fund, to ask for a $0 increase. And we feel like that's a responsible thing to do, given where we currently sit fiscally. I think there would be times when it wouldn't be responsible, but I think this year that it is responsible to do. So this budget would decrease the local it wouldn't decrease, I guess it wouldn't decrease it, but it would come in at a $0 increase to the town this year. So we feel like this budget is pretty significant. I just hit the highlights again, that the budget is up 3.5% when you factor out one-time costs. The budget's only up 1.33%. This budget reduces the undesignated fund dramatically by over $1 million, $1.3 million. This budget continues to, again, reduce the undesignated fund. It sets the school up to have some very significant improvements next year, specifically Hermon High School, which we think is fantastic. And it also comes in at a $0 increase to the town. So we feel really good about this budget. We think that it accomplishes a lot. We think it's responsible. It gets the students what we need. And right now, we are just sitting on two very small variables that, we're just kind of waiting for those to get wrapped up. And like I said, I feel as though I can recommend this very confidently as a second reading in the final proposal, unless something drastically changes where the $19,728,262 goes up. So at that time, I would conclude my budget presentation.
Thank you. I'd now like to open it up to public comment for a second time.
Greg Noel, Hermon. It was stated that the public involvement in the finance subcommittee meetings, yes, there was a little bit of public there. They asked questions. Never got any answers from any of the committee members during those sessions. So I wouldn't call that public involvement. I would state that more as like possibly ignoring the public. Also, the student number increase, you said increase from last year. Well, that's only if you go, that's going off of the new numbers. If you went off your projected numbers, it's actually still a decrease. I'm not sure who told you all that antivirus software is only a one-time cost of $25,000. I don't know of a single company that will let you buy their software and pay only a one-time cost for the rest of the life of the software. That's unheard of. And if you got that, that's great, but please let everyone else know because that's an unheard of thing. You also talked about money left over in this current budget, which means you didn't budget well this year for this year, but also means that the amount of money, if you take that 350,000 or 500,000, whichever numbers it comes out to be, which means you're actually off, you're actually asking for a larger increase than 3.5%, probably closer to 6%. Just be honest with us, be upfront with the numbers, stop playing these games of budget this, not actual numbers. I don't know of anyone or any company that goes off of budgeted numbers to create their next budget. They go off of actual numbers. So I wish you'd start using actual numbers. We have them, and you refuse to use them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Or did you want to comment like on this? Or
I would just say that the antivirus software will continue to decrease because we are going to move out the devices that require that. So that number will lessen dramatically every single year. So we anticipate significant reductions. Unfortunately, we can't use actuals for this year because we're in this year. So we do have to use the budget number. And I obviously, if somebody's opinion is that it doesn't count as public when it's a public meeting, the public was there, the counselors were there, other members of the public. So I just appreciate their participation. They were instrumental in, I think, getting and nailing a really strong and tight budget.
Ed Ford, Hermon, just curious, where can we find this document that has appeared tonight?
It's on the website, it's out back.
This is not the same, it is out back, I appreciate that. This is not the same document that is on the website.
Yes, it is.
I just looked at it. And where, can you just pull that up while we're doing
can we
that?
can we post the updated one?
Yeah, of course.
Well, we just walked in tonight to a budget with a brand new document. So, and that just highlights why this budget is very confusing for taxpayers. We're jumping back between PowerPoint and cost center budgets. Who does that? I look, and maybe the school board should have too. Look across the state, who presents budgets this way? Nobody. And if you could find one, my apologies. And I appreciate the work you folks are doing, but nobody bounces between PowerPoint, cost center, and back to PowerPoint. It's just, I don't get it. And it's very confusing for people that aren't budget people that just trying to figure stuff out. Also, another concern here, I mean, are we going to hear a school board vision at any point in our near future for this budget? Like nobody, I haven't, all year, we've all come to these meetings, we haven't heard anything about student outcomes or improving student outcomes. This budget is all about numbers and trying to fit into some box. And it would be nice at some point if we hear that, if we can hear that. I don't suppose you have 22-23 actual budget number by any chance? I do see this slide here that lists 17 and some change. Is that the actual or is that the budget? You don't have to answer that Also, are we gonna be able to find a current undesignated fund balance as of April 1st of this year? Because this document here you've given out, this number is almost a year old, 3 million and some change. Just curious, any idea what June 30th, 2024 is gonna look like for undesignated? Because if that's the case, we're not talking about the difference between this 23 number and June 24. It'd be nice to know what that is.
Mr. Ford, it doesn't work that way. The audit is the only thing that can tell you.
I know, but look, you've made great projections here going forward. There's no way you could just give an idea, projection
I think
about the history of it?
it's $1 million less.
No. I think it's 5 million. I think undesignated in June 24 is gonna be $5 million.
Okay.
But I mean, why don't you, I would take a number, whatever you have, somebody needs to tell me that's not the number.
I just told you, it's 3.1 as of June of '23, and it's gonna be 2.1 if the school committee,
So you don't anticipate 1 penny more undesignated come June 30th
not if the school committee takes my recommendations.
or July 1st? Okay.
Are you gonna let me finish, Mr. Ford?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So it's gonna be $1 million less if the school committee follows my recommendation to spend on the projects that I listed and prioritize and designate the remaining funds.
I guess we will see.
We will.
I haven't seen evidence of it the last 3 years, but maybe you want this one right. I hope the taxpayers hope so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I just want to comment that the administration updates almost every single report about the students, and if I asked either the last committee meeting or the one before for them to update us on testing results. So we are very focused on the students and how they're improving, so.
Mr. Grant, can you repeat what you said a few minutes ago about the firewall, one cost and it goes away because we're doing what? Are the antivirus?
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, the firewall is an annual cost, but the antivirus.
The antivirus, sorry.
Yes, that will decrease because we are moving to a different student platform. So the devices that need an antivirus will be moved out of the population, and the device that doesn't need an antivirus will be brought in.
What would the device be that doesn't need one?
Google Chromebook.
Interesting. The presentation that we have with the slides on it, the same as last year. I know I'm getting older and need a new prescription, but we can't read that. And so again, transparency, communication. And it's on the website, as you say. It is almost impossible. I've been doing this for 3 years. I've learned how to dig and find stuff on there, but for the average citizen of this town to just go and find this presentation or this budget, it's almost impossible. It's there, but it's not easy for the average person to find it. And I cannot read this document that you have printed off tonight. Can't read it. And the same thing happened last year. And, you know, you've told us a bunch that printer paper is expensive. So these are just little details of just being forthright, communicating, so we can actually sit and could have asked you questions, but I can't even read it.
With all due respect, the small print is not a lack of communication or transparency.
What I'm saying is you presented a document that's, you can't read, Mr. Grant, therefore that's not communicating properly.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
Tony Reynolds, Hermon. Back when I was on school board, I understood that the budget was very important to the town and to the people and how to run the school. But also, back then, and I believe it's still the same, the superintendent has the responsibility, and you school board members, of making sure the kids of Hermon, Carmel, and Levant, and other districts, other towns now, get a good education. And if something crazy happens and you guys need to spend more money, you are able to do that, and then the town will pay for it. I don't believe that's changed. It may have. If it has, I apologize. But I think everybody needs to calm down on their budget. It is a good starting point, but it's not the end.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
Danielle Henry Hermon. Thank you for letting me be involved in the budget process. I just had a clarifying question. I know during the budgeting process, it was mentioned that there are a few items still outstanding, and you had mentioned that earlier tonight, and I think again later. Is it possible after tonight for those adjustments, and I believe those adjustments may go down, is it possible after tonight's vote, if those items that you're still waiting for come back, will the budget be able to go down, or does it need to come back before the committee again? I'm not asking you to make it go down more, I'm just trying to get clarification on what you were saying.
So the two outstanding items for the committees, I think I've said this before. One is the teacher's contract. So we have tentatively concluded negotiations. So that's great. But that is one item that we had to use a placeholder in the budget. We just closed on Monday night, so we have not run the number. We do believe that we put a larger placeholder than where we close. The second one is health insurance. I received the ranges from the MEA Trust. Is it the MEA Trust, Jamie? Did I say that right? The MEA Trust yesterday. Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
There is a chance, based on that range that I saw, that we did not budget enough. Am I accurate in that, Jamie?
Yes.
I thought we used a placeholder of 10%. They did say the range could be as high as 11.5%. Our hope is that we will not be in the 11.5 group, that will be 10 or under, and that will also, the number that we settle that with our teachers collective bargaining unit we anticipate the budget to go down if we are 10% or less for health insurance.
Danielle, are you also asking though, if the number changes, does it have to, procedurally, does it?
It's a procedural question. If the number changes, does it have to come back before this committee, or is it something that the committee's gonna authorize that if it goes down, it can move forward?
My recommendation would be, and I believe that we can move forward if it's less.
Great, thank you.
It's okay for me to come up here, but I do just want to direct people, I'm looking for the budget on here, and I think this might be helpful. So when I go on the first page, I see the proposed budget, and if you click on it, it's in a PowerPoint, and it looks pretty large. You can also zoom in on it, so it does have that ability. So I just want to say, like, maybe just to look in, like, I can show you from whatever it is. I thought that was helpful.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Any additional public comment? We will close public comment. I'm gonna turn it over to the committee before we do a vote, because I wanna make sure that everybody, normally we take a motion, we take a second, and then we open it up for discussion, but I wanna have all questions asked right now, so I'd like to turn it over.
I'll be very transparent that I didn't get the budget till just a few days ago. I've asked for months and months to have the budget, to be able to review, to be part of it. I haven't had my emails returned. I haven't been allowed to speak during public comment. I don't get questions answered. And if I send questions, I am replied that my questions are found as harassment when I'm simply asking for a copy of the budget or asking budget questions. There was no part of the process, as some people have said that, oh, we've all been allowed to be part of it. No, we haven't been allowed. The information has been withheld from me specifically, whether it's everyone or just me. So with that, I've had a matter of hours to prepare.
Ms. Skeezer, you
I am
obviously
speaking.
referenced me.
I am speaking. I did not reference you. I'm speaking. Thank you. I've had just a matter of hours to prepare, which is clearly by design. So I apologize for the questions, which many could have been answered prior.
I just want to add that I just want to add a couple of things, because there's been some inaccurate things. The budget, did you have a copy of it last month?
I not have a copy. Did I not ask for a copy from
No,
you?
I thought I saw a copy that you had during the last meeting.
Yeah, that was not a copy of the current budget, which I asked for. I got a copy from one of the people in the audience who had a copy that was handed out. When I asked at the meeting, I was told there aren't any more copies. Thankfully, someone shared it with me. However, I emailed you, both of you, multiple times, and the secretary, and asked for a copy of the current budget,
Which I provided to you.
as did other people in this audience. It
When
was
did
not
you get a
provided.
budget from me?
I got the budget from you Friday,
Oh, okay, you said a couple hours, you've had it a couple hours,
Mr. Grant.
but you got it Friday.
I was away out of state all weekend.
Okay, you said 3 hours.
No, I'm
That's
saying I
Friday.
had 3 hours to review $19 million.
No, you
I
had
don't know why
Friday.
you're
You had-
laughing,
you had
Mrs.
Friday.
McLaughlin.
You had Friday, right? And then you came
I
and
was
picked it up
traveling to
Monday.
Massachusetts.
Okay.
But you had,
Yeah, but you keep saying you got it 3 hours.
No, what I said was I've had 3 hours thereabouts to cover $19 million. That's what I
But
said.
that's for you, that's your problem.
That's my problem. I've had less than a week to review $19 million, while the rest of you have had months.
That is
to-
inaccurate, it's inaccurate. Let's move forward with your
I would like
actual
to move
questions
forward.
on the
You were
budget.
the one that brought it up.
I just wanted to state that there was a copy that you had at the last meeting.
I did not have an accurate copy. Move forward, please. You're the one that brought it up. You said on the ED 279, correct me if I'm misunderstanding what you wrote, that there's $8,510 for the student subsidy, the tuition rate, is that right? Is that what that number stands for? It's not written as money, so I don't know if that's what you're trying to say.
Which one? Which
On
grade level?
ED 279 notable changes, you
Mhm.
wrote 8,510. Is that the tuition rate?
No, that's the state subsidy.
Where in this can I see that the tuition rate went up to 10,416? Where is that additional revenue for the tuition rate in this budget?
The tuition revenue is on the revenues page. It is number, page 2, second one from the top. Secondary tuition, regular instruction. And we did not increase it this year. We didn't feel comfortable with the tuition rate. I know it would be easy to just take the 10,416, is that the number? 10,416, somewhere in that range. Unfortunately, we don't get all that money with the Student Attendance United Technology Center. And so we are still waiting for those overall registrations to come in. If they attend UTC and they are a tuition student from Carmel, Levant, Glenburn, fill in the blank, running from another town, then we only get a percentage of that tuition.
I didn't notice or couldn't find where we had an expenditure. Usually we have a total expenditures sheet that comes part of this packet. I didn't see that.
We don't have a report that prints total expenditures. We have Jamie creates spreadsheets for the committee from time to time, but the expenditures, it's a balanced budget, so the revenues is the same as all the cost centers added up. If you add up all the cost centers that are on the website or in your packet, that's going to come out to, sorry, I just don't want to say the wrong number, $19,728,262.97.
I noticed in the line items that the Lenovo's were still in there for around $64,000, but I thought we were switching to Chromebooks, which was gonna be a significant savings.
Yes, the number was put in the books, or put in the budget, I believe it's $63,000. That was put in the budget prior to the tech committee meeting where we discussed the transition from one platform to another. So the money will remain in the budget, and the type of computer will change as the tech committee and the tech department makes their changes. So it's still in there, it's just, it will likely not be a Lenovo.
Correct, but it'll be substantial, it's like half the cost.
I have to check and see if that was adjusted.
It was not.
Okay.
And it might not be adjusted because we don't have a firm price finalized yet. So we have to go with a price that we have a firm on versus trying to project costs that we haven't bid out yet.
Do you have more questions?
I do, thank you. I noticed 2 spots in guidance, there was $140,000 allotted, but it doesn't really explain what it's for, it's just a blanket amount. So I think it was high school and middle school, and don't quote me on that because I don't have it handy, but can you share more about what that large
Wages.
But the wages were broken out, and then there was $140,000.
So if you have 2 people, it's 2 wages combined. So if there's 3 guidance counselors at the high school, it's 3 wages all combined. If you have 1 wage at the middle school, it's 1 wage. If you have 2 at the elementary school, it's 1 wage. There's nothing in their budget that's $140,000, it would be wages.
Well, last year we were talking about medical expenses and such, and I didn't see those numbers in here this year. We were talking about mental health services and all of that. I didn't see those numbers or where those could be found in this budget. Granted, I didn't have a ton of time, but.
The mental health services is a contract with Northwoods Clinical Counseling, and so that's also listed. I believe that would be.
Yes, that I did see.
Yeah, that would be the mental health services.
I did see fringe benefits listed. I have never seen that listed in contracts. Why are we funding fringe benefits?
I would have to ask Jamie that question. And do you know what cost center that's in?
It was under staff administration, I think, or I'd have to find it. It was hundreds of pages. Maybe he's had longer to look at it. Why are we continuing to buy VoIP phones? Like, are they breaking every year? They're a large amount of money for VoIP phones and services.
Well, they are expensive. They're $100 a piece, and we are reaching the end of life. So some of them, we know we will need to replace. So I believe our methodology this year was to budget for a quarter at every building and start a cycle process of replacing them.
I saw you had a network engineer in there. Did we just hire an IT director who has networking experience?
I don't have a network engineer budgeted.
I think I saw $10,000 for network engineering.
That's probably to facilitate in some of the upgrades that we're gonna do this spring, but that's not a person, that's support. Yes, we have.
Right, support,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
But this person we hired has experience with that, so I was just clarifying.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like most people know, we have a lot of improvements to do this summer. He's got a tall task ahead of him, and I certainly authorized him to get third-party vending to help him where he needs to, whether it's Active Directory, whether it's working on cabling. I mean, he can cable too, but I wouldn't ask him to climb up in the ceilings and cable. His time is valuable, so I authorize certainly support where he needs it.
I noticed year after year, the finance software is around $35,000. It says software and repair. Is there a specific repair issue with finance, or is like $35,000 is a lot of money? Just for the software?
You have to ask Jamie about the software.
Jamie's here.
Mhm.
Probably administration. Business administration.
Is that the Tyler information, Jamie?
The state name for that account is software repairs and maintenance. That is the cost to have our finance software cloud hosted
Thank you.
with our annual licensing fees to operate it. I hope that's clear.
Yes, it is. It's a lot of money. I noticed that you had said IT had $88,000 from undesignated. We have a substantial amount of work to do. Is that being funded through other revenues? Is that why you're clarifying this $88,000 under undesignated?
No, it's not undesignated, it's funding IT, that's not how it works. The revenue just balances the budget. What I'm doing is I'm highlighting one-time costs that I think we will not need again next year.
I see. noticed the bus cell phones were $6,000 a year, which was a huge jump. Why aren't we just paying like a stipend for people to use their personal phone versus having all of these extra contracts and having to deal with that, and manage phones and
Each bus has a specific cell phone number, so it doesn't matter which driver's driving it, it has a specific cell phone. So rather than having to know if who's the bus driver, what his cell phone is, the bus has a cell phone.
It's much safer to have a consistent phone that you know is gonna be on, it's gonna go to that bus, regardless of the driver forgot their phone, driver didn't pay for their minutes, or whatever it might be.
okay.
So, it really is a
So
safety
that's
issue.
fair, except when I read the warrants and I see they're roughly around $300 a month and just, it's minor, I understand, those are the things, when we over budget all over the place, it adds up eventually. So from a $3,600 to saying it's over 6,000, it's everywhere. Any questions, probably not.
I don't have any questions, but I'm ready to make some comments if you,
Yeah.
if there's a break.
Go ahead.
So first off, we've been at this for months now. So, December 14th was the first official meeting. December 14th was the first official meeting regarding budgets. But we've been talking about budgets since October. And the idea of over $400,000 going towards projects was an outcome of a budget meeting we had with unassigned fund balance for months ago. So to say there's a lack of transparency and that people don't know what's going on with the budgets, it's a false narrative. You've gone to the meetings and you've had the budget sheets that you can take and you can read, and you had the budget last meeting in which you could look and you could go through these things. And the same information I've got was presented and forwarded to anybody else to get. It was, I don't know how.
Please allow Brian to finish.
You've been to all of the meetings. So many of the questions that are being asked tonight are also questions that were asked or discussed at those meetings. So the narrative of the information has not gone out and it has not been afforded to you is just not true. And then in regards to, you didn't get the information until Friday, true. The final budget didn't come out till Friday. And I've been working very closely with the school department as part of the finance committee. And I actually wrote over 4 pages of questions to Mr. Grant and Ms. Youngblood over the updated budget. And in response, I received over 4 pages of responses. So
That doesn't mean it's true for everybody. I've asked questions too, Mr. Menziano. How can you say that?
the information is there if you wanted it, Haley. You know what I'm telling you.
That is not true.
It is true.
No,
is
it
true.
isn't. I've asked questions and I've been resistant. You don't know. You'll
You're
soon
right.
know, but you don't know.
Not for the public.
That's right. Or,
So to go back on.
Okay, please allow Brian
To go back on
finish.
some questions reference actuals. For the group, I did do a survey or a audit of the 23 actuals along with other members of the finance committee. We did recognize and identify the differences in spending versus budgeted. And we did make a conscious effort to adjust the budget so that it would be called a recalibration, so that we would find those items that were underspent in 23 and are trending to be underspent in 24, and applied that to the 25 budget. And throughout my research on it, I found that the overwhelming majority of items that were identified from the 23 budget had been addressed in the 25 budget by staying either static or being reduced. The difference in the increase is people. So the cost centers that we've gone through exhaustively have been looked at and addressed in an appropriate way. And I think it's fair that this won't be the one-time fix, because you can't accept all the risk in 1 year to make dramatic changes. But I think the finance committee and the administration made honest attempts and a good faith effort to refocus the budget, to adjust cost centers so that it best reflects what is needed for the school and that it's best for the community. The guidance or the discussion points that you have been in all of the finance committee meetings to hear that was communicated to the administration was, I personally wanted to see the budget adjusted without any cuts to current programs. And I think the administration has done a very good job at adjusting their finances so that programs are not cut, but reasonable adjustments have been made to recalibrate the budget, and I think that has been accomplished. So the 23 actuals were looked at, Mr. Ford, and a great deal of effort was put into it. Student outcomes were addressed, especially when we talked about making sure that we had an increase to teachers. We made sure that we retained a nurse. We used actual numbers of students rather than outdated projections, because we had the administration actually go through and find out how many students we had in seats today compared to what we will have next year. So the numbers being used of the 1375 is actually a really good working number. Better, I think it's better than the projected that had been done in past administrations, which are almost 2 years old now. We had worked through leftovers in the budget, and there is a correct comment of there was bad budget planning. I believe there's bad budget planning. 2 years ago, I stood at the podium over there and I criticized the school on their budget, much like some of you have done tonight. And I think we have made significant improvements over the last 9 months, and it is seen through a very good budget. It isn't perfect. You will be able to come to this meeting next year and go, ha, this was wrong. Yep, but that's budget. But we did put out goals as a school committee that were to reduce the unassigned fund balance by 2025, and with this budget does that. To have a zero increase to the local share, this budget does that. And then where we did fall short is less than $700,000 in the carry forward from the unassigned fund balance. When you discount the one-time projects, that's in about the $980,000, which I consider to be a reasonable give to try and put together a good budget. So the honest effort and the work has gone into this, and I support the budget. And I think it's best for our community.
To that, nowhere have I ever talked about cutting a program.
Didn't say you did.
So I want to be very clear, I support the teachers as well, and I haven't heard anything about how this helps teachers in the classroom, how this helps them have more hands in the classroom, how this helps them feel safe and secure and supported at work. I haven't heard how this is going to reach learning objectives. You might have that information, I haven't heard it.
You were in all of the finance meetings where we discussed that. If you would like to go into the budget, there are line items by teacher's name of what they would like for supplies. And it's a by name within the budget, which you had last month.
See, but we don't have access to the teachers. I was cut off last time, I want feedback from them. What more do they need? What did they get cut that they wanted?
They don't go to you for those, they go to the building principals, and then they come to me.
Correct.
And then I present the budget. I didn't touch their supply lines, I didn't touch instructional supplies. The third grade teachers got what they requested. The second grade teachers got what they requested. And every student, K8, pre-K, are getting supplies per one of the school committee objectives. I think it is very unfair to say that you don't see where teachers are supported in this budget.
I see that there's supplies. What I asked for, what I was trying to ask for last time was that we would, as a committee, get feedback from the teachers. Is there something more they needed or wanted that we could help achieve through the budget? I didn't get to have that
But
opportunity.
that's not your job, that's my job.
It just answered you on that none of the teachers' supplies got cut.
So
They
not
got
one
all
teacher,
of
not
their,
one
can I
teacher.
finish please? All of their requests got put through. In the past, I've been part of years where they have gotten instructional material cut. Mr. Grant just said, all of the requests that the teachers put in to the administration got approved.
Perfect, so I won't hear one teacher say that they wanted something they didn't receive that will help them learn at the end of the year, help the students learn.
If it was put in their budget, then we
Okay.
move forward with it.
Great.
I mean, there's a certain, if it wasn't put in the budget and the principals didn't get to see it, then, you know, we
Again,
just,
it's not
I mean, I don't
about.
know how to answer that.
It's about the process. The process is the principals to me, teachers, principals, me, then to the school committee. It is not teachers to school committee. That is not how this works. It's not intended to work that way.
Actually.
No, you don't understand. You keep saying that you want to hear from the teachers.
Actually, if you read Maine statute, it says very clearly that the school board members are supposed to have communication, as does their contract, that we're supposed to be communicating and hearing from them, so that's not true.
What
There are-
questions do
Regarding
you
the
have
budget and
about?
supplies, it says that, the budget and supplies, this.
Not
teachers
supplies,
should
it's
go
talking
to
about
the teachers,
communication.
okay.
To give
What questions do you have specific about this budget? That's what we're discussing right now.
Also, there are people at this who have very close relationships with teachers at this table, so to give this impression that teachers aren't allowed to communicate with school board members is false.
What questions do you have
I didn't say
specific
that.
to this
She's
budget?
getting
Because
it
at
very
that point, this is where we are at.
I guess that's all my questions.
Okay, I make a motion to, oh, Chris, do you have more? Because I was gonna,
Mention to it.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the second reading of the FY '25 budget. Do I have
Second.
any further discussion?
Haley, last time you voted no. What in this budget is it, you've talked a lot of procedural. We're at a dollar value in a budget.
Sure.
What money value in thing not included or is included is causing the problem? What is there something that should be included in this budget that you haven't gotten?
First, you're asking why I vote no, which is not supposed to happen, but I'll answer the question
Okay.
because I'm a very
What
transparent
would
person.
what would this budget have to have for you to be pleased with it? I'm not talking process, I'm talking,
Okay.
there is thousands of line of budget here. What part of this budget would make you happy with it?
It's hard to say because the process was so broken. I know, you want to say besides process, besides the one fundamental thing that outlines the team effort and the thing we are elected to do, which is this is one of the number one things. We as a team are supposed to sit together at a table and have these discussions as workshops, not as final readings. Final readings are, yep, we all are pretty much agree this is what it's gonna look like.
At the last school committee meeting, we gave the public 2 opportunities to speak about the budget. There's been 6 subcommittee, I'm finishing, okay? Yeah. 6 subcommittee finance meetings. And last time there was opportunity for the committee to ask questions when the budget was over, I mean, I could be wrong, over $20 million. So we are not surprised by a $19 million budget. In fact, I'm appreciative of all the hard work that the administration, finance committee, town council members have done. Some of the public has emailed us questions, of which we've responded to. Committee members have the ability to email questions as well, such as what Ryan mentioned. So I'm appreciative of all the work and that it's a reduced budget and that there's 0 impact to the town.
If I could just make one more comment. Just trying to put apples to apples. I can only find on DOE the FY '21 state per pupil cost, but I think it's very key for us to know this. The average state per pupil cost in FY '21 was $15,647. The per pupil cost at 1375 students for Hermon in FY '25, according to my public school math, comes out to $14,347,826. So here we are 2 years later, and we're still under 21, 22, 23, 20, actually 3 years later, and we're actually under the state average for per pupil cost. So apples to apples, I think we're in the ballpark. We're doing the right thing.
We haven't had budget meetings, they were listed as finance, you were correct, that's a correct statement. They haven't been workshops, they haven't been, are you agreeing or?
No, I'm ready to vote.
I don't know why you guys laugh, that is. I'm saying you're not following the proper process, and to say and give this impression that we've had a group effort, we haven't. And questions I have sent have not been answered, that's inaccurate. In fact, you basically said, I'm no longer allowed to email and ask questions, and that will be addressed soon. Why? Because it's over budgeted, the process wasn't followed, and it's been over budgeted. When you look at what gets reported to the state, it's millions more than what the actual cost that gets reported to DOE. I have yet to have someone explain to me why it looks like we're spending, say, we have 17 million budgeted, and we're telling DOE we're spending 15. Last year, I don't even have the numbers in front of me, so I don't dare to say.
What are you asking to be changed with this budget?
I asked at the beginning of the year, just as I did the year prior, to be part of the process.
What are you asking to be changed for this budget for the numbers?
Would it matter today? Would it matter if I said, cut this, this, or this?
This is your opportunity to speak, that's what I'm asking, and to the other, like last month, we had an opportunity, like I said, with $20 million.
We didn't have an opportunity
Every time,
Ms. Euler, we didn't.
every time you interrupt, finish.
Because you listed it as a presentation. I had no idea we were gonna vote. We should not have voted on that. That was an illegal vote to begin with. You made a motion for something that was not on the agenda.
What questions do you have specific to this budget?
There is nothing I can say that would change things today, and you know it.
You know what? I'm asking you for your opinion. So you have nothing? Okay.
Nothing
All
further.
those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Move to adjourn the meeting at, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:43.
Second.
All those in favor?